Phone pressed to my ear. I'm mid-sentence, briefing the state attorney's office on a municipal bid-rigging pattern when an HOA, Karen and her teenage son march up my driveway and demand, dead serious, that I hand over my Harley keys for the good of the community. The smell of motor oil and fresh coffee hangs in my garage while morning dew beads on. $25,000 of restored heritage Softail, my dad's 1998 V-twin purring in my memory like a promise. The kid, who's failed his driver's test twice and once put his dad's pickup through a fence, points at my bike and says, "My mom thinks you should let me borrow this for prom." His mother nods, sunglasses on her head like a crown. "It's community service, Mr. Bellweather. Sharing is caring." I think it's a bit, but then she actually dials 911 on speaker while I'm literally talking to prosecutors about corruption. What would you do if an entitled HOA president interrupted a law enforcement call to try to steal your motorcycle? Drop your location below and tell me if your neighborhood ever hit this level of ridiculous. Let me back up. I'm Marcus Tank Bellweather, 20 years in the Marines as a diesel mechanic keeping Humvees and generators alive where warranty void means nothing. After the divorce, I bought a modest ranch in Willowbrook Estates. Looked quiet on the brochure. The Harley was my dad's. He was a Vietnam vet, Purple Heart, gone 3 years from cancer. He left me the Softail and boxes of original parts. Every weekend I rebuilt her. New paint, rebuilt mill, custom leather seat that fits my hands like a prayer. When that V-twin breathes, it sounds like freedom and family. Willowbrook sells a middle-class lake, walking trails, speed bumps every 200 yards, manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, the suburban lullaby. They don't advertise the $180 a month HOA that polices shutter colors. Enter Constance Thornfield, Connie to friends, shortlist, real estate agent, divorced HOA president 4 years running unopposed because nobody wants the headache. Bleached bob, oversized sunglasses, white BMW X5 with vanity plates, emails that sound helpful while making you feel like a problem. Connie believes rules apply differently to quality residents. She sits the architectural review like a judge and keeps a cozy tie with Code Officer Jim Kratzky. 3 weeks after move-in, I got a certified letter. My motorcycle violated commercial vehicle restrictions under Bylaw 7.3b. A Harley commercial? Meanwhile, the neighbor's plumbing van sleeps in his driveway, and the landscaper's trailer lives on the street. Connie's BMW wears magnetic real estate signs every weekend. I emailed politely with photos requesting equal enforcement. In reply came an emergency board meeting, a second notice, and a $150 fine. Diesel from Martinez Plumbing mixed with honeysuckle while I photographed their non-commercial F-350 and Connie's sign-wrapped Beamer. Almost funny. Almost. Her son Bradley, 16 and the future of somebody's headache, fixated on my Harley from day one. He asked to borrow it for prom. I explained insurance and offered to show him the engineering instead. He sulked off, muttering about selfish veterans and problem neighbors. By Tuesday, I had 4 violation notices. The pattern emerged. I was the target. Elena Rodriguez, my next-door neighbor, a single mom, night shift nurse, twins who say yes please and thank you, knocked one evening with tamales and clarity. She did this to the Hendersons before they moved and the Washingtons and the elderly couple before the Kramers, she said. Meanwhile, Bradley's parties rattled windows, beer cans decorated the walking trail, a dent bloomed in Mr. Aiden's garage door, and he collected 0 violations. So I did what Marines do, document. Evenings became public records digs. Meeting minutes, financials, architectural decisions, keyboard clicks, and percolator bubbles keeping time. Proper preparation prevents piss-poor performance, we used to say. Patterns surfaced. Friends' pools approved instantly. Everyone else's delayed 6 months. Poker buddies' fences rubber-stamped. Working families denied for aesthetics. A JAG officer's voice from deployment drifted up. Targeting someone for military status can trigger Fair Housing Act penalties. I called housing discrimination attorney Sarah Aiden. She confirmed it. Then I cross-referenced recent sales with violation bursts and found something that made the mechanic in me see the whole machine. 3 properties sold through Connie's agency had all suffered sudden violation floods, sold quick below market, and generated tidy commissions, not random design. Meanwhile, Bradley escalated, arriving with 3 friends and peer pressure. When I declined again, he shouted, "You're hoarding something that should benefit the whole community. My mom says people like you are what's wrong with America." Grease slicked my wrench hand. The kid parroted rhetoric too neatly to be coincidence. He stomped off and I made a decision. Stop playing defense and start building a case tight enough to torque to spec. Overwhelming force at the right moment. That's a language bullies understand. 3 days after Bradley's tantrum, a city truck rolled up and out climbed Jim Kratzky, clipboard and cologne. Anonymous complaint about a home-based business and a need to inspect. Anonymous my foot, the timing was neon. He prowled my garage like he owned the deed, finally poking at oil spots in my driveway. Environmental hazard, he declared, citing code 15.7c. I wanted to laugh. Those stains are as American as socket sets. But I kept the camera rolling because Iraq taught me corrupt officials always overplay their hand. The night before, following instinct, I'd run public marriage records and learned Kratzky's brother married Connie's sister in 2018. Impartial my foot. Elena introduced me to Dorothy Walsh, a retired paralegal with silver hair, a librarian's eyes, and a kitchen full of legal books. She'd been quietly watching Connie's operation with professional interest. 23 years in family court, Dot said, sliding binders across her kitchen table. I know a pattern when I see one. Your Karen isn't just power hungry. She's running a profitable scam. Dot taught me about HOA liens. Unpaid fines become liens like unpaid taxes. Liens lead to foreclosure. Most folks don't grasp that until the sheriff's sale notice is stamped. We cross-referenced property records with HOA finances and watched the scheme resolve like a blueprint. Targeted harassment, unpaid fines, liens, distressed sales, tidy commissions through Connie's agency. Then Dot found the kicker. Community Asset Recovery LLC, Connie's shell, had been buying those liens from the HOA at 50 cents on the dollar, then using them to force foreclosures. Create the fines, buy the debt, foreclose the house, list the property. 8 homes in 3 years, all same pattern, all generating commissions and flips. It was elegant the way a stripped bolt is elegant. Pure destructive leverage. That night I was mounting a motion-activated camera system when I heard fumbling. 2 a.m., and there's Bradley trying to start my Harley with a wire hanger. He knocked it over. The kickstand scraped like a dentist's drill. He froze when my floods lit him up. What the hell are you doing? I asked. He muttered about protecting my bike, his hands shaking. The scene recorded from 3 angles. I could have called it in. Should have, maybe. Instead, I documented, repaired cosmetic scratches, and sent him home. Sometimes the best weapon is the one you keep in reserve until the ideal moment. Connie launched her nuclear option. A whisper campaign about the unstable veteran with anger issues. A rumor mill on overdrive. An emergency meeting to ban motorcycles because of noise, despite my documented 10 a.m., 8 p.m. limits. She crafted an Oscar-worthy performance. Nails tapping the podium. Designer suit. Recording for transparency. The crowd split into careful neutrals and quietly fed-up neighbors. I kept my procedural research quiet. Our bylaws require 2/3 for new restrictions. Connie had been ramming policy through with simple majorities. Those decisions were legally empty. Meanwhile, I left town to visit my aunt, and Bradley treated my absence like an invitation. He showed up with YouTube-taught lockpicks and went to work on my garage. The silent alarm alerted Elena and PD. 6 minutes later, officers found him in possession of burglary tools, and my camera had recorded everything, including his phone paused on a lockpicking tutorial. Connie arrived in a panic, trying misunderstanding and security check, and maybe the garage was open, but small-town cops know what evidence looks like. I could have pressed felonies. I waited. The board was scheduled to jam through those vehicle restrictions. I wanted a bigger trap. Dot returned with a manila folder thick enough to wedge a door and a look lawyers get when they find the thread that unspools the sweater. It's worse than we thought, she said. HOA lane sales to Connie's shell, flips through her agency, 2.3 million in manufactured transactions, and a victim profile that made my jaw clench. Elders. Single moms, veterans, minorities. The people least likely to lawyer up. 4 more households were targeted next, including a young couple with twins. My day job consulting with the State Public Integrity Unit, exactly the people who prosecute these patterns, suddenly felt less coincidental. The certified violation letters Connie loved so much, mail fraud footer, the timeline and evidence I'd been compiling, prosecutors eat that for breakfast. The hunter had just become the hunted, and she didn't know. I called an emergency meeting in my garage. Elena brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Dot brought legal pads. I looped in attorney Sarah Aiden on speaker. Based on what I'm seeing, Sarah said, we're looking at a civil RICO, fair housing violations, mail and wire fraud. Federal prosecutors will want this. Plan. Elena would quietly build a coalition among victims. Dot would map every transaction. Sarah would draft the complaint, and I would coordinate with state prosecutors and a reporter. Dot's neighbor at KBTV put us in touch with investigative reporter Janet Kim, who's been tracking HOA abuse statewide. Clear paper trail, sympathetic victims, this could change state law, she said. While we prepped, I FOIA'd everything. Board minutes, code complaints, transfer records, Kratzky's personnel file. Government business is public business, and corrupt officials hate when you remember that. My Marine buddy Rico drove in with off-the-shelf glass and parabolic mics. We sat across from Chez Leon, the restaurant where Connie held her weekly lunches with Kratzky and Councilman Rick Peaton, aimed microphones across public right-of-way, and let the gear do its quiet work. Modern surveillance through glass is legal if you stay on public land. One afternoon, Elena liaised with Madison Creek, Bradley's girlfriend, who walked in terrified but determined and handed over voice memos. Bradley had been bragging. Mom targets problem neighbors, manufactures violations, coordinates with code enforcement, buys liens for half, forecloses, flips. He described my break-in as recon. Sarah practically purred when she heard it. Explicit intent, overt acts, financial benefit, conspiracy elements on tape. Connie must have felt a shift. I stopped paying bogus fines, stopped replying, started showing up at meetings with a notebook and a calm smile. Cornered people panic. Her next step was a restraining order drafted like fiction. Alleged stalking incidents on days my GPS and cameras had me in my garage or at my aunt's. Alleged threatening gestures while she walked her dog. Whispered danger woven around PTSD stigma. In court, Sarah played timestamps like cards. The judge's questions turned cold. Mrs. Thornfield. Sworn perjury is a felony. Petition dismissed. Referral to the DA. Then came the audio we'd been waiting for. Rico's parabolic mic captured Connie at Chez Leon with Peaton and Kratzky. The tank problem needs to be resolved, she said. Jim, find code violations. Rick, what about zoning issues? We need him gone before he figures out our operation. Peaton replied, property acquisition is legitimate, but one troublemaker can expose the system. Maybe it's time for more serious pressure. Rico isn't a word you invoke lightly. Prosecutors heard the audio and said, move now. In parallel, Janet's undercover camera caught Connie trying to bribe Kratzky with Cowboys playoff tickets to accelerate code enforcement against Elena and me. The footage was damning enough to hang careers. The police picked up Bradley on the break-in. His lawyer offered cooperation in exchange for juvenile leniency. The kid cracked. He handed over text threads, handwritten notes his mother had given him with assignments and more recordings, detailed instructions for harassment. Meanwhile, Connie's crisis PR went scorched earth. Anonymous robocalls painting me unstable, a Yelp smear campaign against my business, flyers at the grocery headlined Dangerous Neighbor. They overplayed when someone called Child Protective Services about my daughter, false claims of chemicals and weapons, neglect, absences. Principal Morrison fielded 47 calls from teachers, parents, pastors, Tank's a stable father, Mackenzie's honor roll, and CPS closed it in 2 hours, flagged for malicious reporting. Roy's veterans mapped the PR firm to a rented office over the pizza place. College kids paid $20 an hour to robo-smear and set a watch. In the middle of that PR blizzard, the mechanical sabotage hit Rico's alert. Bradley was in my garage again, deliberately loosening brake cables to teach a lesson. I let him finish on camera, then photographed and repaired. Prints matched. Combined with previous attempts, prosecutors had a ladder of escalating crimes and, more importantly, a clear mother-son conspiracy in support of a fraud enterprise. Connie showed up with a bottle of wine and, let's be civilized, offered to drop fines if I became the HOA's preferred contractor. Straight-faced quid pro quo, recorded in crystal audio. Her last ally, columnist Rick Martinez, called me after she pitched a PTSD scare piece. He did actual reporting, smelled a larger story, and pivoted his column to ask why the HOA had so many emergencies. Our civil suit was filed. State prosecutors set their pieces. Janet scheduled her expose to air during the evening news. and the HOA called an emergency meeting to address community unrest. The stage was set. Connie planned to perform. She didn't know she was about to be arrested on live TV. The Willowbrook Community Center had never seen a crowd like it. Standing room only. Half came to support Connie's order. Half came to watch heat turn to light. KBTV's cameras framed the back. 2 federal agents and Detective Morrison sat by the exit like quiet uncles. Connie took the podium at 7:00 p.m. Navy suit, practiced tremble. Opening with the victim card. As a single mother, I've been terrorized by a dangerous individual. She gestured toward me and described alleged threats that never happened, and dangerous behavior that amounted to oil changes and weekend rides. Her supporters clapped on cue. Then I walked up with a manila folder and plugged in a laptop. Mrs. Thornfield told you a story, I said. Here are the facts. Slide 1. A timeline of every violation, every fine, each instance of selective enforcement. Murmurs turned to conversations. Slide 2. The lien to foreclosure conveyor belt. Dates, amounts, buyers, commissions. 8 families gone. Slide 3. Bank flows between HOA accounts and Community Asset Recovery LLC, then to Connie's agency and shells. She created violations, imposed fines, bought the debt, foreclosed, and profited, I said. This isn't community management. It's a machine. Then came audio from Shaleon. Connie's voice filled the room. These people don't deserve to live in quality neighborhoods if they can't follow simple rules. Faces turned. Someone whispered shame. Someone else said it loud. Connie shot to her feet, screaming fabrication. But the next slide was Bradley's break-in, lockpicks glittering on concrete. The next, his brake cable sabotage. The next, her contractor bribe. Morrison stood and walked up, the room falling quiet like a theater during the last line. Mrs. Thornfield, he said, you're under arrest for racketeering, mail fraud, conspiracy, and perjury. Handcuffs clicked. Federal agents stood and quietly escorted 2 men in the back, Kratzky and Piton, who had decided catastrophically to attend. Connie shouted, I'm the victim, as the door closed on her careful costume. Victim stood. The Hendersons, the Washingtons, an elderly gentleman with a walker who said he mortgaged his house for non-conforming flags and unsafe sheds. Elena squeezed my hand. Dot wiped a tear. Janet's opening live shot included that sound, the applause of neighbors who finally felt safe to clap. Outside, people hugged, swapped numbers, and signed a petition for a new election and an independent audit.
Inside, the board members who hadn't been cuffed stared at their shoes.
The vote to suspend the board was immediate and emphatic. An interim caretaker slate, Elena president, Dot treasurer, Diego on governance, won by acclamation. By morning, Janet's story had 200,000 views. By afternoon, I was at the DA's office giving a formal statement. Rico handed off metadata. Dot boxed files with the efficiency of a clerk who once ruled filing rooms. Sarah met with federal prosecutors. The next week, the HOA refunds began. $180,000 in bogus fines returned. A forensic audit uncovered even more consulting payments. A civil RICO suit froze assets. Neighbors who had kept their heads down for years started picking them up and walking taller at the mailbox. 6 months later, the legal picture was sharp. Connie pled to RICO, mail fraud, conspiracy, perjury. 4 years in federal prison and a civil judgment ordering $2.8 million in restitution and penalties. Kratzky took 2. Peton faced municipal corruption trials. The civil suit funded community improvements and our long-planned Veterans Memorial Garden. We rebuilt outreach. Elena chaired a resident rights committee. Dot published a plain English owner's guide. Diego built a quarterly open book budget night, where anyone can ask anything and get it answered on a projector. Property values rose because buyers like sunlight. Bradley's arc surprised me. His juvenile plea required 200 hours of service. We agreed he'd spend them in my garage and at a motorcycle safety class. Fate has a sense of humor. The kid knows torque specs by heart now, and his graduation speech, my mom taught power as control. Tank taught power as service and made the principal cry. The night we fired the Harley after a full teardown and rebuild, the exhaust rumble sounded like forgiveness. I gave him a patch. Not a biker gang emblem, just a small embroidered lion holding a wrench. Janet's expose won awards. Sarah opened a practice focused on HOA abuse cases and can't keep up with demand. The legislature passed a transparency bill requiring independent audits and public posting of HOA budgets. 12 communities emailed asking how to build coalitions. I send them a PDF, document, organize, learn the rules, then stand together. We keep learning. Documentation is a sword. The Open Meetings Act is a shield. FOIA is a pry bar. When neighbors unite around facts, even well-connected bullies break. We're not done. Last week, Maria Santos from the next county called. Solar permit blockages, code manipulation, same smell. Rico's loading gear. Sarah's drafting. Dot's sharpening pencils. Elena's organizing childcare. The memorial garden we built sits on the land where intimidation used to live. We'll say our vows there this spring, me and the nurse who stood in the breach when rumors swirled, surrounded by a community that chose each other. If you're watching this thinking, that's my story, drop your HOA nightmare in the comments. You're not alone. Start with one folder. Write dates, snap photos, ask a neighbor to coffee. Learn your governing documents and your state statutes. Bullies count on you being tired and busy. They have no plan when you show up with receipts and 10 friends. Hit subscribe to join the HOA Stories family and share these playbooks. The next time someone wraps theft in community standards, remember, the engine only runs if we all feed it. Refuse. And when they call 911 to steal your bike while you're on the line with prosecutors, keep the call rolling, then let the handcuffs do the talking.